Hi. I'm Historidame, and I'm gonna be totally honest with you guys, I didn't think I would make it this far. When I started this channel 2 years ago, I thought that maybe I would get like 12 people watching my videos, and then when people suddenly started showing interest, it felt so crazy. And then the next thing you know, you're mispronouncing the names of 2 British estates and someone points it out and you're like, oh man, that sucks. But I mean, how many people are even going to see this? Maybe a few thousand? Oh no. So, yeah, I suppose you could say this is unexpected, but I just want to come out and thank each and every one of you for supporting the channel. Being able to do YouTube has honestly changed my life, and I'm so grateful to everyone who's subscribed and watched my videos and taken the time to like and comment. So, to celebrate reaching 100,000 subscribers, we're going to do something a little different today. Sometimes I find a topic that's really interesting, but there's just not enough information to conduct solid research. Or it's something obscure that doesn't have many images to actually make a video with. At least not the kind that I make. So in the spirit of all the video ideas that I haven't been able to complete, I've decided to make a little variety show for you all. I'm calling this Things I'd Like to Talk About That Aren't Really Substantial to Have Their Own Video. So sit back, relax, and once again, thank you everyone for your support. There are few things in life that I enjoy more than walking through a really nice garden. It's beautiful, peaceful, and the ideal setting to imagine yourself as the heroine of a historical romance drama. And one of the things that really makes this experience is the decor. I want to see garden gnomes, I want to see fairy houses, I want those little ceramic statues of super round animals, and hot damn do I love a good fountain. But during the 18th century, there was a different kind of garden decoration that was becoming popular amongst the British aristocracy. Now, historically, rich people have always been known to enjoy spectacle, and the world of 18th century gardening was no different. It was common for landowners to include little features for visitors to enjoy while visiting their property, like waterfalls or an aviary. And I guess at some point, people just got bored with the normal level of whimsy, and decided, hey, what if we just put a weird little guy in there? Let me introduce you to the Ornamental Hermit. This was a brief trend where wealthy estate owners would actually hire real people to dress in costume, grow their hair out long, avoid bathing, and live in their garden for multiple years at a time, as a sort of spectacle for entertaining guests. These hermits would live in a hermitage built on the property, which could range in design from looking anything like a secluded cave to a small hut situated amongst the flower beds. If hired, hermits would have to follow a strict set of rules depending on the vibe that their employer was going for. One member of British Parliament, the Honourable Charles Hamilton, posted an advertisement for the position of hermit where he required the applicant to never leave the property and never speak to anyone for 7 years. In this time, he was also forbidden to bathe or wash himself in any way, and must let his hair and nails grow as long as physically possible. The hermit would be offered a sum ranging between £500 to £700, so about $95,000 to $130,000 in today's money. Other employers might have also included additional requirements, like wearing a specific costume, or providing specialized entertainment to visitors. Ornamental hermits would eventually fall out of fashion around the Victorian era, partially due to concerns about the living conditions that these people were subjected to. And you know what? Perhaps that was for the best. So, I am not what you would call a movie buff, but I've always had an appreciation for mid-century film. In a lot of cases, I just think that older movies have more soul than most of the things that are being made today. They weren't filming half the movies in front of a green screen for one. Props and sets had to be creative. People talked in the old-timey transatlantic accent.
Really?
Really?
And best of all, in the 1950s, going to the cinema was a lot more of an experience than it is today. And one director that was really pushing the bounds of creativity when it came to this experience was William Castle. Now, William Castle was a big fan of gimmicks. For his 1958 film, Macabre, he took out a $1,000 insurance policy for every person who bought a ticket to the movie, in the case that they died from fright. He even hired several actors to stand around the lobby of the theater and pretend to be nurses on duty. At a few of the premieres, Castle himself even arrived in a hearse and made his entrance by jumping out of a coffin. For the showing of his 1959 film, House on Haunted Hill, he had some theaters swing a skeleton with red eyes over the audience during a scene where characters are chased by a similar-looking skeleton. And in 1964, after being specifically told by his financial backers to not do any more gimmicks with the release of the film Strait Jacket, Castle reluctantly agreed. Only to backpedal at the last second and order thousands of blood-stained cardboard axes to be handed out to moviegoers. My guy just could not help himself. It was even getting to the point where theaters were refusing to show his films at all because there were just too many steps involved. Which brings me to what is arguably considered to be William Castle's best gimmick of all time, the Percepto technology that was used for showings of his 1959 movie, The Tingler. Starring Vincent Price, The Tingler follows the story of a scientist who discovers a parasite that lives inside the human spinal cord. Dubbed the Tingler, this creature grows in size whenever its host experiences fear, causing a tingling sensation at the base of the spine. The only way to stop the Tingler from growing and eventually killing you is to scream, which temporarily paralyzes it. So William Castle has this premise, right? And he's about to show the movie to the public, and he thinks to himself, what if we got people really afraid of our monster by installing vibrating motors into the theater seats? Castle called this gimmick Percepto, and had it set to trigger near the end of the film when a Tingler specimen escapes from a steel box and runs loose in a movie theater. During the scene, a hired actress planted in the audience would scream at the same time as one of the victims in the film, and pretend to faint before being carried out on a stretcher. As part of the bit, the movie would then be stopped to announce the fainting before telling everyone to stay calm and remain seated, because the movie will begin again momentarily. Once it resumed, a second announcement would be made by Vincent Price's character, warning,
"Ladies and gentlemen, please do not panic, but scream! Scream for your lives! The Tingler is loose in this theater!"
And then on cue, the seats would start vibrating, making everyone think that the Tingler was coming for them. Just incredible. Great work, Mr. Castle. I'm sure this was a formative experience for many people. If you do a lot of antiquing, chances are you've come across some of these old pieces of green glassware. Now, aside from looking cool as hell, these dishes, candlesticks, ashtrays, and sculptures also come with a little secret. They glow under UV light, and also they're radioactive. This is known as uranium glass, and it was a popular trend between the 1880s and the 1920s. This was an era before uranium and other radioactive materials were widely understood to be harmful, but it sure made great color pigments, so let's just put it in everything. Throughout the decades where it experienced peak popularity, you could find radioactive household items of all kinds, including egg cups, perfume bottles, jars, dishware, and this sculpture of a bull that I found. Uranium glass also comes in a yellow variety known as Vaseline glass, named after its similarity to the product of the same name. The production of uranium glass would unfortunately begin to wane during World War II, when governments required uranium to be reserved for the war effort, rather than making a snazzy tea set. Now, I've wanted to do a video on uranium glass since pretty much the beginning of my channel, because 1, it looks like the things you'd find in the Flying Dutchman's ship on SpongeBob, and 2, the idea of radioactive tableware is, frankly, terrifying. But once I looked into it, it turns out that it's not actually that radioactive. Though the idea of having your dinner plate set off a Geiger counter is unsettling. Pieces of uranium glass have been tested, and only about 1% is actually made of uranium, so it's not that harmful. You get about the same amount of radiation every day from just being under the sun or using a microwave. Though I should note that safety regulations still recommend that you don't serve food on these antiques, especially things that are acidic, just to be safe. Avoid this lemon juicer at all cost. What's the weirdest package you've ever received in the mail? For me, it's probably a custom color-changing mug that starts out black, and then once you put something hot inside, you're met with,
"Hey, you're finally awake."
But in our modern age of online shopping, it's not that unheard of to order something a little weird. Though I can almost guarantee that whatever strange package you've received is nowhere near as bizarre as a handful of incidents that happened during the early 1910s. Prior to 1913, the United States Postal Service only allowed the delivery of packages that weighed less than 4 pounds. In January of that year, however, the Parcel Post service launched, increasing the maximum weight of packages to 11 pounds. Now, this was a pretty big deal for people, especially for those who lived in more remote areas. Now they could purchase all kinds of supplies that were previously difficult to acquire, and just have them shipped to their house. But at the same time, a few people also happened to notice that there was a certain lack of regulations when it came to what you could send with this new parcel post. Only a few weeks after the launch of the service, a couple in Ohio wanted to send their 8-month-old son, James, to visit his grandmother, who lived a few miles away from them. Now, instead of taking baby James themselves, Jesse and Matilda Beagle realized that the new postal service came with a loophole. You see, baby James weighed just under 11 pounds, and there weren't any rules that said they couldn't send their son out with the mail. And so, after paying the postage fee of 15 cents and insuring him for $50, James Beagle became the first person ever mailed through the US Postal Service. Later that year, since Parcel Post was such a smashing success, the maximum weight of packages that could be sent eventually increased from 11 pounds to 20 pounds, and by 1914, the limit would sit at 50. This meant that children were officially viable, and there would be a few other cases over the years of kids being sent through the mail. Just to clarify though, these children were not being put into boxes or sent in the mail sack. Most of the time, it was an unaccompanied minors kind of situation, where they would be chaperoned by the mailman in his cart or on the train. The most famous case of this happening was with 5-year-old Charlotte May Piersdorf, who just managed to squeak under the 50-pound limit and was mailed 73 miles by train in February of 1914 to her grandparents' house. Charlotte's parents apparently did this because the postage fee was cheaper than a train ticket. Sadly, after this incident gained some attention, those in charge of the US Postal Service caught up with what was happening and would officially ban the shipping of any humans. And that's the last story that I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed this little variety episode. If you'd be interested in seeing this kind of thing again, let me know. Once again, I want to thank all of you for watching and supporting the channel. It really means a lot. Hopefully you all decide to continue on this YouTube journey with me. But for now, I bid you farewell.